Hello, this is Cryptolyze. I hope you are well. This Thursday, 26 October 2023, it is with pleasure that I meet you today to talk about INJ, the crypto from INJECTIVE protocol. As usual, we will dissect it into two parts. The fundamental part, we're going to come back to what INJECTIVE protocol is, to its news, and we are going to project ourselves in the short, medium, long term on purchase prices, sales prices, especially since we have a protocol and a token that was completely torn from the ground, and we are going to explain why, how, and how far it can go. As a reminder, you always have the possibility of having free access to the educational course, which is a 60-hour training course worth €400, which allows you to learn blockchain, crypto, investment, technical analysis, trading, everything to become profitable. Through 130 videos, 400 pages of guides, quizzes to find out where you are in your progress, and all for free. To have access to this lifelong training, simply use the platform of one of our partners. Everything is explained in the comments and descriptions. INJECTIVE protocol is a blockchain that was specifically designed for finance. The real goal of this blockchain is to provide an interface, an ecosystem, the tools necessary to be able to build applications for finance, and with the aim of instantiating traditional finance in a decentralized ecosystem. So decentralizing everything is relative, but in any case in which the decentralization of actors allows for a reduction in transaction costs. This is really the goal and principle of INJECTIVE protocol. Besides, they actually designed all of their elements around that in which they instantiated decentralized finance solutions specific to institutions. They set up a specific portal for institutions. We will talk about it later. And aside, the INJ serves two purposes. One necessarily as a means of gas to be able to pay for transactions, staking to be able to protect the blockchain being that it is a proof of stake. And then we have a burning system which is put in place to be able to reduce the supply according to the different fees which have been used. Currently, we are in a circulating supply of 83 million INJ, therefore approximately 84% of the max supply, and we are in a fully diluted market cap of 11 billion, which is relatively significant at the market level, because we are in a bear market and we are in a blockchain which has relatively little TVL. When we look a little bit at DeFi Llama, we see that we are at 20 million TVL, and which is all carried by Helix. And what is Helix? It is a decentralized exchange specialized for institutional investors. The very principle of Helix is to give institutional investors the means to be able to trade absolutely all types of assets, initially crypto, but all types of assets with something that will be compliant and also that will actually have very, very low costs. So aside, in terms of news, we see that we have a lot of Helix, which is in the process of pushing through the instantiation of Helix at the level of Celestia, at the level of their pre-launch, which is in the process of arriving, and we can clearly see that we have an increase in TVL, and that the majority of TVL comes from Helix, okay? So on top of that, there are the people who deposit liquidity in which they are paid for that, but also the fees and the fluctuations that there can be. Afterwards, I admit to you that we have ruptures which take place. That is to say that we were at 17 millions, we went to 13 millions, and we go back to 15 millions. We see that the TVL has struggling to maintain itself, but which is at the same time logical currently because we have had an upward acceleration in the price of the INJECTIVE token, and therefore inevitably we will have profit-taking, which is logical. Besides, in terms of news in September, we had in particular the implementation, finally the acceptance of EVMs with a layer 2 to support compatible EVMs. Therefore, all the applications which are developed in Solidity and which revolve in the Ethereum ecosystem. We also have the possibility of having the management of Cosmos and Solana, so they are really trying to offer their solutions to many other blockchains and accept the developments that have been made on these blockchains, on their own blockchains, to actually become a leader in the management of futures and trading through accessibility, compliance, and cost reduction. Mainly this is the purpose of INJECTIVE protocol. Next to the tokenomics level, and there it's interesting to see because we take a little more time on it. We have the private sale, the seed sale, the private sale. We have Binance Launchpad in which it was open to the public. We have the team, we have the advisors. Okay, when we look, we have almost 40%, which is mainly found in people who have financed, and therefore there is no dirty public, at least in the state. Then we will see the ecosystem develop. So there it is, all that is token release and dumping. Mainly to be able to finance everything that works around the ecosystem and to have a large community. So overall, that is marketing. So these are things that are sold to be able to finance either posts or videos or communication to be able to pay community managers and so on, and therefore have a relatively strong marketing policy. When we look at the release of these tokens, we see that we are almost towards the end, and that we still have a part of the block in which we will release 2024 on January, in which we will be careful. But that nevertheless implies that the majority of the token has been released. This will be seen in the price level, and it also explains why we currently have a token which has a value, in any case an increasing valuation, because we have a reduction in the downward pressure due, mainly to the dumping that may have occurred over the last 2 years. The last year especially, and next to it we have the news around Helix, which is the portal in which we have. This is in fact a product that we can sell to institutional investors, and in which we can drain volume. Well, yes, but do we have volume? Absolutely do not agree. We are just being careful there. Currently, we have a decorrelation between the structural valuation of INJECTIVE and the DEX, and that will also be explained in the really technical part where you will see that it is normal to have an upward acceleration with the rupture that we had and the taking of liquidity, and obviously from the moment where we have a pre-funding and a pre-launch at the level of Helix, that implies that we are going to need the INJ token to be able to use Helix and to be able to use all the liquidity that is around that. So we are going to have a real demand in a liquidity zone, which is rather classic, and we are going to talk about this technical part. You will see that it is very interesting. So we are going to come back to INJECTIVE protocol, in which we had a big valuation with the first acceleration, retracement, second acceleration with a peak which was made at $25. And then we had a retracement in 3 stages with precisely the first wave, retracement, second wave, and the establishment here of an accumulation. Very clean accumulation elsewhere. And what is important is that we also have here a week-off distribution with a BC, Arkansas, ST, SAW, and so overall we could wait for a UT and a UTAD, okay, new 88ths to take the liquidity of the BC. Nevertheless, we had the sing of weakness. We had this accumulation phase, which was done in 2 stages, in which we had the PSI here, we had the accumulation here, therefore the first phase of accumulation, and in which we had a bullish break of this accumulation phase, and which went to retest and resume the PSY. There we are in the process of going to retest the SC, which is rather positive for INJECTIVE crypto. So, with that, we will explain a little bit what happened in terms of the bullish acceleration. What is interesting to see is that we left a large pool of liquidity with this first acceleration, this retest that we had, okay? So we had a very, very good retest here, and we had left some liquidity. And what is interesting to see is that when we sought this liquidity, thanks mainly to the movement which was carried by BTC, which removed in any case, which gave significant momentum at the level of cryptos, we had an increase in liquidity. And on this increase in liquidity, we see that we had an acceleration which was very significant. How far can this acceleration go? Already for me, we can easily go towards the $14-15 in which we have this level of resistance, which will be very important, and in which for me we will have the establishment of a retracement. So what I personally expect would be something like that to then go and retest the level of liquidity that we have taken, and either here make an accumulation, and therefore we would be in a form of reaccumulation with a distribution, accumulation, and we would leave again on the rise and we would go for a UT-UTAD. Or we would have here a break with behind here a rejection on precisely this support, which would once again become a resistance to begin a bearish return in which we will have a large wave 1 and then a retracement of wave 2 in which we will have a breather in the 618 or even 786. And moreover, if we trace them, I think that we arrive more or less in the interesting zones. Hop! Let's admit we're going to look there. We would have 618 on a retest of liquidity, 786 on this break block order because we had the accumulation, the taking of liquidity, acceleration in the greenhouse. We retest the zone breakup and we're leaving, okay? So here we have a rather interesting hook point to retest. So am I in the INJECTIVE? Absolutely not. As I told you, currently for me it is overvalued. So I will come back if I ever have an attractive price and my attractive prices don't change. It remains below $5.46. And once again, if we don't get into it, it doesn't matter. There are plenty of opportunities nearby. The important thing is to know when it is interesting to buy, when you are in an interesting area, if ever we return to this box there. It will be interesting to go and buy if there is no fundamental news, which is a contraindication to that. If ever there we are in a bullish acceleration, we rarely buy candles like that. We always buy a pullback. We always buy a lateralization or a retest of lateralization. We are not going to buy here. And that is one of the reasons why I tell you that in any case, I will wait for the passage below. If we don't succeed, too bad. If we succeed, in this case, patience will have worked. And it's the same principle. It is always more interesting not to buy than to buy an overvalued asset. It's always the same principle. Currently, we are in an upward acceleration, on a pre-launch, in particular the establishment of a helix, which is also based on an acceleration of BTC. Besides, small passage, we have INJECTIVE, which outperforms BTC. Okay, this is important, this is interesting. This has always been the case. Since January 2020, we have always had a big acceleration except for this lateralization phase, which is represented by this breathing, which is rather classic, which is rather normal. And there we start again in a phase of acceleration of outperformance. What will be interesting is, will we be able to maintain this outperformance all along? Or is it because we have a series of news currently on INJECTIVE in which we have a form of breathing and we will in any case have the release of the tokens in January 2020 oven? Clearly, given the levels of press that have taken place, I think we will have a sale, but the volume remains relatively low compared to that. It would be interesting to see whether it will be in that $55 zone or whether it will be lower. At that moment, in any case, in all cases, I will follow up because it is a token that interests you greatly. Many of you will talk about it, and therefore I will follow up with you even if I have no position on this crypto. It's always interesting to follow developments and have a factual, purely factual and detached look at this type of asset. I hope you liked this video. If so, don't forget to leave me a like and a comment. It always makes me very nice, and we'll see you tomorrow at 7 a.m. for the daily.